Hope everybody enjoyed yesterday. We had an outstanding set of presentations focused on applied telemedicine and digital health, local to global. And today we'll be focusing on natural recording and computational processing in psychiatry. I'm delighted that our keynote presentations are two of really the world leaders on both the industry side and the academic and national side, with Dr. Rana el Kaliouby, from the founder of Affectiva, followed by Josh Gordon, our NIMH director. And then after both of them speak, we'll be having the fireside chat. And so please put your questions in that as well. It's really my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rana el Kaliouby, co-founder and CEO of Affectiva, as well as author of her book, Girl Decoded, which was recently released this year. Dr. el Kaliouby earned her bachelor's and master's from American University and her PhD at Cambridge. She completed her postdoc at MIT, helping to found the Autism and Communication Technology Initiative. At the Affective Computing Group at MIT Media Lab, she was part of a team pioneering an emotional hearing aid and a set of emotional reading wearable glasses that was included in the top 100 New York Times innovations. She's been involved in a number of different components across this space, including founding Affectiva that applies computer vision, machine learning, and data science to leverage facial emotion repository to understand feelings and behaviors, really a new approach to emotional artificial intelligence. She's been recognized in the Fortune's 500's 40 Under 40, Forbes America's Top 50 Women in Tech, and World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. It's truly our pleasure to have you join us today, Dr. el Kaliouby. Thank you so much. We look forward to your talk.
Thank you, Carrie, and hi, everybody. I hope you're all staying well and staying safe and staying connected. So I've been on this mission over the last 20 years to humanize technology, bringing artificial emotional intelligence and marrying that with AI. It's been an interesting journey going from academia to industry and kind of exploring the variety of use cases of this technology, everything from advertising to autism to automotive. For today's conversation, I will focus it on the 5 trends humanizing AI in health tech. So AI is becoming mainstream. It is taking on roles that were traditionally done by humans. Everything from, being at conversational interfaces, helping us be more productive, driving our cars and assisting with our healthcare. And one thing that's becoming really important, and we're realizing it, is we need a social contract, a new social contract between humans and machines. Technologies today are designed to be conversational and relational, but these systems have massive cognitive abilities, lots of high IQ, but no EQ, no emotional intelligence. It's the missing element. And we know from years and years of academic research that human intelligence isn't just based on your IQ. People who have higher EQs tend to be more professional, they're more persuasive, they're able to motivate people to change behavior, and they're more successful in their personal and professional lives. And I believe that that is equally true for technology that is so deeply ingrained in our lives. You can't just have smart technology that has a lot of IQ but no EQ. We need to marry the two. So a number of years ago, when I first got to Cambridge University, I had this aha moment that I was spending so much time in front of my computer, yet this device had absolutely no clue how I was feeling. It was completely oblivious to my emotional and mental state. Yet it was also the main window of main portal of communication to my family back home. And there were many, many days where I was lonely and homesick, but I was able to hide that behind the machine, right? We would often jump on chats, and my family would ask, okay, how are you doing, Rana? And I would just say, I'm fine, even though I was in tears and I was hurting. And it made me realize that, technology gives us the illusion of a connection, but oftentimes it's not a true connection. And it's something I've been really thinking about, especially in this pandemic, during this pandemic, when, again, we're all connected over all of these virtual platforms. Of course, I'm very grateful for that, but it does make me sometimes wonder, how true are these connections and what are we not seeing? And of course, that ties very heavily to mental health. That question got me on this journey to build artificial emotional intelligence. And I asked a series of what if questions. What if technology could identify emotions just as we humans can? What if your computer could tell the difference between a smile and a smirk? Both involve the lower half of the face, but they have very different meanings. One is a positive expression and one is a pretty negative expression. As it turns out, humans communicate with a variety of modalities. Only 7% of how we communicate our mental and emotional states is in the actual choice of words we use. 93% is nonverbal, and it's split almost equally between your facial expressions, your hand and body gestures, and your vocal intonations. How do you say the words you say? And together, these nonverbal signals are extremely important. They are at the core of our emotional intelligence. They're at the core of how we build trust, how we build empathy, yet they're completely ignored and not quantified in our digital communications. So how does one build emotion AI, especially through the face? The science of facial emotions has been around for over 200 years. Duchenne used to electrically stimulate our face to understand facial muscle movement. Of course, thank goodness we don't do that anymore. In the 1970s, Paul Ekman and his team published the facial action coding system, basically a system that maps every facial muscle movement to a code. So for example, action unit 12 is, or the smile, is the zygomatics muscle. This is the corrugator muscle. It's what you use to furrow your eyebrows, and that's action unit 4. There's about 45 or so of these action units, and it takes about 100 hours of training to become a certified face reader or fax coder. And it's a very laborious, time-intensive process to code these expressions. So instead, we use computer vision and machine learning and tons of data to train these algorithms. In this example, you're seeing many examples of people smiling. The more diverse these people are, the better. And that feeds then into deep neural networks that look for what's common between these different underlying expressions. And eventually we have basically a series of deep neural nets for recognizing emotions and other states. We started with about 3 of these classifiers. We now have over 30. And we're continuously adding to our repository of what the system can read off of the face. We've now expanded it to body gestures, vocal intonations, and more. There are a lot of applications of this technology. I fundamentally believe it's just going to be the de facto human machine interface. It's going to transform how we interact with our machines, but also how we connect with each other in a digital world. At my startup, Affectiva, we are engaged in a number of these industries, notably automotive and the media and entertainment and advertising space. But I do recognize that there are a lot of applications in the healthcare space, and I want to focus on those. So first of all, emotion AI will transform mental health. When you walk into the doctor's office today, they don't ask you, what is your temperature or what's your blood pressure? They just measure it. But in mental health, the gold standard is still on a scale from 1 to 10. How stressed are you? Or how depressed are you? How suicidal are you? How much pain are you in? And we absolutely can do better. We know that there are facial and vocal biomarkers of depression, obviously pain, Parkinson's, and we're able to quantify these vital signs using objective longitudinal data, and that's something it's a huge potential opportunity for this technology. The very first application that I explored with this technology back at MIT before we even started the company was around autism, and it was a NSF project that brought me over to MIT, where we proposed to build a series of glasses, a pair of glasses with a camera in, and proposed that individuals on the autism spectrum could use these glasses to learn about nonverbal signals in situ, right, as they're interacting with people. Fast forward, so that was at MIT. It was a prototype. We deployed it in a school for autistic kids. We were seeing really positive results. And now we're partnered with a company called Brain Power, and they this was before Google Glass. They now use Google Glass to actually bring this technology to market. It's deployed in about 400 homes. And I want to play a short video showing you how it works.
What do you see on screen?
Mom.
8-year-old Matthew Krieger has been diagnosed with autism.
A lot of the trouble he gets into with other kids is he thinks he's funny and doesn't read at all that he's not, or that they're annoyed or angry.
Matthew's mother, Laura, signed him up for a clinical trial being conducted by Ned Sahin.
I want to know what's going on inside the brain of someone with autism. And it turns out parents want to know that too. You get points for looking for a while, and then even for looking away and then looking back.
Sahin's company BrainPower uses Affectiva software in programs Matthew sees through Google Glass. These games are trying to help him understand how facial expressions correspond to emotions and learn social cues.
One of the key life skills is understanding the emotions of others, and another is looking in their direction when they're speaking. Looking at your mom, and while it's green, you're getting points. When it starts to get orange and red, you'll slow down with the points.
Am I looking at you?
You are looking at me.
Just a few minutes later, the difference in Matthew's gaze overwhelmed his mother.
I'm gonna cry.
Why?
When you look at me, it makes me think we haven't really before, because you're looking at me differently.
So we know that the kids who have been wearing these glasses for several months, we are seeing an improvement in their facial, the amount of eye contact and the quality of the eye contact they do. And we're now, the question is, does this generalize beyond the glasses? Another area where this technology is being used is in Parkinson's. So Erin Smith, she's the founder of FacePrint. I have a really amazing story about how Erin got into this. She was 15 years old, watching a documentary on Parkinson's when she noticed that the patient's facial expressions were just off. There's something odd about them. So she went on Google and looked for, technologies that quantify facial expressions, found us, emailed sales@affectiva.com and said, I'm a 15-year-old. I want to use your technology to look at Parkinson's. And I remember our head of sales asking me, like, what do we do with this? Like, should we just ignore it? And I was like, no, let's give her access to our technology and see what she does with it. And so we gave her a free license to our SDK, and she disappeared for a few months. And then she came back. She had partnered with the Michael J. Fox Foundation and ran a study of 100 patients with Parkinson's. And she had a control group and was able to identify these facial biomarkers of Parkinson's. She's now at Stanford, and she has this company, and she's trying to bring this to market. So the moral of the story here is that innovation can come from anywhere, including young talent. Very proud of what she's been doing and excited to continue our partnership with her. Another example is around rebuilding smiles with emotion AI. So plastic surgeon, Dr. Joe Dusseldorp, works with stroke victims to rebuild their smiles. Before, like the standard kind of approach to doing this is, you have the patients practice at home, and then you see them every few months or, once a month, and then you try to assess if their smiles are fixed, right? There is no quantification or objective measure for measuring if their smiles are improving. We're now able to use, or Dr. Dusseldorp uses our technology to quantify that improvement. How symmetric is the smile? And they can do that remotely too, which is really powerful. Trend number 2, emotion AI will transform telehealth. We have all been catapulted into this universe where telehealth, is finally here. And again, there's an opportunity to quantify things like empathy, right? Like we can look at the dynamics between the patients and the doctors. We know that doctors who are perceived as being more empathetic are less likely to get sued. Well, now we have a way to potentially quantify that and use it as a coaching tool for doctors, and also pairing patients with doctors as well. So lots of potential opportunity there. We have a small POC with Children's Hospital in Boston that I'm excited about. And I think that's an area that is ripe for innovation. Trend number 3, collaborative robots or cobots in healthcare. This is a really exciting space. I want to start with this picture. I love this one when I see it, because adults in general have this fear of robots, right? And I want to kind of juxtapose it with my son's infatuation and his friends. They're just like, they love social robots. And Adam, who's now 11, this was a number of years ago, he will tell you, like, Alexa is your assistant. You can, unfortunately, we all boss our Alexa assistant around. But Jibo, which was a social robot that spun out of MIT, and Tega, which is this blue furry robot also developed by MIT, he'll tell you it's more of a companion, it's more of a friend, and it can be a companion for learning, but it also could be applied in health. So we are partnered with a company called Telehealth. They have a robot called Meibu, which they send with terminally ill patients when the patients go home. The robot is designed to build a relationship and look after the patient from kind of a mental and emotional standpoint, and escalate this to a human clinician or nurse if need be. And so again, I want to show a short video of me.
How are you doing? Want to try a breathing exercise together?
Sounds good.
This is Meibu, a companion robot that looks after patients at home.
She's here to remind us mainly about our medications.
It's a face you may want to remember, because Meibu, or something like it, might look after you one day.
I realize she's a robot, but in a way, like, you actually feel that she cares, like she said, I'll call your doctor, and that's like something that a friend would do for you.
As we live longer and our aging population strains the healthcare system, AI and robotics may fill the gaps.
We don't have enough people to provide the level of care that we'd like to. And so that's really where robotics and AI come in.
But are we ready to hand over life and death decisions to the machines?
I'll stop here, but you can certainly look up Meibu. There are really powerful examples of how these patients built an emotional connection and a relationship based on trust with this social robot. Trend number 4 is around this concept of virtual therapists. So it doesn't have to be embodied in a robot, although we do have evidence that if these technologies are embodied physically, that the patients are more, they're more likely to be accountable, right? But there are also there are studies that have been done with virtual therapists. For example, in this particular case, this was work that was done by USC, where they had an avatar interview PTSD patients, and we found that patients were more likely to confide in these virtual therapists versus human therapists because they found them to be less judgmental. I think it says a lot about not just technology, but about humanity. And for me, it raises a lot of moral questions and ethical questions about the use of this technology, which I won't get into here, but it's definitely a point of conversation. We had a team over the summer, again, young people, high school students and undergrads, prototype a smart mirror that understands your emotions in real time and converses with you. And they wanted to solve the problem around mental health and how technology can act, again, as virtual therapists and confidants. Very interesting work. And then the final trend is really around mitigating bias in AI by being very intentional around diversity, equity, and inclusion. If we are going to build AI that works for all of us, it absolutely has to consider the diversity of the people it's going to have to work with. And in our case, when we're training these classifiers, we have to ensure that ensure the diversity of the data. And we have to also look at the how does the algorithm do by subpopulation? That's really critical for us. And it's something that we think about a lot. And for me, it ties into this ethical development and deployment of AI. We have to consider data privacy, consent, We do not do any work in surveillance and security because I believe that that has a lot of unintended consequences, and we instead try to focus on applications that will, bring a better humanity. And so for me, yes, we are building artificial intelligence, but it is about the humans first. Thank you.